One more thing to notice, and this is really important. Monopolies obviously have higher profits than competitive firms. They have a higher markup. A markup is basically the way to determine that how high your profit margins are. This is actually called the learner's index. And the key concept is that the more inelastic a product is, the more essential a product is to a consumer, the higher the markup and the higher the overall negative effect on consumers. So that is why having monopolies for things that become essential to people are really bad, and they make insanely profitable those firms. Think of how social media has become an essential and important part of people's daily lives. That's why Facebook and the like are so profitable, because people have or become addicted to them in such a way that, well, they are the owners of this, and they're basically the only provider, quote unquote only provider. There's a couple of options, but still they're really big. So they become extremely profitable because they are like a global monopoly. Facebook is essential. Like, you have more than, like, what was it, like more than 2 billion customers or like subscribers to Facebook, 1 billion subscribers to Instagram, and like around 800 million subscribers to WhatsApp. When you add that up, you have more than half the population of the planet. So that you're a huge monopoly. And that's why Mark Zuckerberg is like the fifth richest person in the world, like at 35 or whatever he is right now. There are different ways to try to correct monopolies. Monopolies are harmful for society. You need to eliminate them. You basically, as a society, you are better off without them. So there are different policy interventions that we could do. You never want to tax monopolies, because if you tax monopolies, remember, you restrict the quantity because you increase the price, so you only affect society more. You don't want to subsidize a monopoly. You don't want to subsidize a monopoly to expand production and like have the optimal quantity for the market, because someone has to pay for that subsidy. The government is paying for that, but the government funds that subsidy through their taxes that they collect on other markets, on other industries that you are distorting just to pay for this subsidy. There's nothing as a free lunch. So if this is, for example, the graph of what happens when you subsidize a monopoly, yes, you return to the actual market equilibrium quantity 8, but this triangle here where the E is located is a deadweight loss because someone had to pay for that. In this case, the budget. So the best way to actually regulate monopolies is, or to deal with monopolies, is to regulate them and force different alternatives, basically by trying to introduce some form of competition. Some regulators in some markets, in some countries, decide to do something called optimal price regulation, which is trying to place price ceilings, like we saw a couple of classes ago, to try to enforce the market equilibrium price, or a price much closer to the market equilibrium price. That is hard to do because you don't necessarily know the costs of the firms, and you create negative incentives or perverse incentives for the firm, monopoly firm, to try and lobby the government to basically have a higher price ceiling so that it's closer to the monopoly price. It incentivizes corruption. So a better approach is to trying to introduce competition by different options, breaking it up into different firms, lowering barriers to entry, like legal barriers to entry, so that new firms that have better technology can enter that market and start competing with this firm. Deregulation is similar to this idea. Sometimes it implies privatizing state-owned firms and allowing a new ownership to basically introduce new technology, better services, but always considering the divided firms. Questions before we leave?